Hi, and welcome to Getting Started with SAC. I am Vineet Bade. I've been in SAP for about 15 years, so I'm trying to get you involved. Here, we're going to go through the agenda of establishing your SA practice environment so you can get started. Then, we're going to look to structure what dimensions you really need in your model. Once we have that complete, we can then go to construct a load file just to get you ingrained in terms of what you want to look for. And then later down the line, we can get into going to external sources into your model. Then once you have your dimensions that you would like, then you can build your model into SAC into your tenant. Now with here, it gives you the flexibility to say, what you exactly want. Are you a fiscal calendar year? And then from there, we can move to loading your data, transforming your data as need be based on what you receive from what you created or what you would like to test. So from here, now what we can do is move over into our other areas. So bear with me for just a moment. So now what you see is the link in terms of where you would get to the trial experience. From here, you would then scroll down into here to say to start your trial or not. So I want to start my trial. Let this go. Right, I'm going to type in my address. What we're looking for came through right away. So now you're going to get an email such as this. It's going to say welcome in, activate account. So I'm going to click that. It's going to give me my name. And it's going to ask me, okay, what do I want my password to be? And I know what password I want to be. So I put that in. Great. So now we can move forward. So now, if you notice, you're firmly in your tenant, right? So a lot of the things that you would see are here, right? Giving you full access to the gambit of security. So there's no security applied, so therefore you have your connections, you have security, everything that you would get as an admin. So from this standpoint, if we look back to our guide, right, we're looking at structuring of what dimensions would be in our model, right? What do we want? So if I were looking from that perspective, I would say, okay, let's go into Excel. Now let's understand, what do we want out of this, right? So I might say that I want dimensions, right? Something innate with SAC, it's a given. So 2 dimensions are given to you, version and date, right? So that's something you don't have to worry about because that's given to you innately. The next things that you want to think about is like, okay, what do I need? Okay, I know I have accounts, right? So I'm going to call this account. And typically, I'm doing this in a generic manner, but for your dimensions, you would want them to have a naming convention, like IT underscore or your model underscore. If they're if they're public dimensions shared across models, you might want to choose something a little more generic so it can be utilized by others. So I'm going to say that I'm going to have team, and I'm going to have, let's see, something just wild, right? In terms of like what we would think about. Right? So that's the basic structure of our model, right? With these strict dimensions, and how we want to look at things. So with that bearing in mind, you can then look to say, okay, if that's what I really have, then how do I want to do this? So then in your actual file, in a new sheet, you would say, okay, here's the dimensions I'm looking at. Give me one moment. We would put actual. And then we could say, then you could string that across, of course. And for your date, we could say that, okay, we're going to load 20.5.01, right? 20.5.02, following that same methodology, so it's recognized. And in doing so, you can drag that across. That's up until period 9. So we're going to take that to period 12. Perfect. So now we're going to show our expenses as negatives in this particular example. So it's going to say minus 50, minus 500, and then expenses were like 75. And then my achieved revenue, hypothetically, was cross, and then the same atmosphere. They're spending the same, however, they're only making half what we make. So we have our demo test going, so we can go ahead and close this file. Now, in SAC itself, we say, okay, so we know what our structure is, we know what our dimensions we want. So now we can say, okay, do we want private dimensions? Which private dimensions have restrictions. You can't load data to them from a view, so it's very self-maintained. Public dimensions, it can be self-maintained or it can be loaded from an external source. My favorite is to do that from an external source. So if you go into your modeler, this structure really shows you, okay, here's what my model is. Here is what's going on. So also it gives you your public dimension tables and so forth. So if we know what we want to do, we can say, okay, now we're here. We're going to say we're going to create an account type for account. And we call this account as well. Right. If they desire. Now, all of these, they don't have to be enabled right now. They can be put in and actually put it in our files, right? Because in SAC, excuse me, it requires you to have your master data present. Also, I like the grid view, which is right here. So now we can say, we can cut, we can paste. Perfect. If we want to have a hierarchy, we can, right? To say, okay, that this goes to total. Total. Actually, you know what? We'll just make this net income. Perfect, that's roots. And then these guys, since they're children, they will have that parent. Now, a way to look at this is like first you're gonna save it. Let's save. Now you can see this populated. So if you want to look at it from a hierarchy, you could say, okay, net income is these three accounts, right? Revenue, and then expenses. So it's going to consolidate to give you net income. So now that we have that dimension, we can then go back by clicking the up arrow. And so now with accounts, we are good. The public dim. So now we want to create our other area, right? Which was team. So it's a 1-by-1 scenario. You keep that generic. Go ahead and save this as well. And then we get enter our final component. So with this, I'm going to do it slightly different just to show another methodology. So then we're going to say, okay, we're going to add one more. We're going to say that this is C underscore E, right? C, E. Capital expense. Now we can save that. So now we have our dimensions that we want in our model. So we can click back onto the modeler and say create new model. Now we're going to start with an empty model. Now, key things first. We can go ahead, we're starting first by adding our dimensions. So it says, okay, we see our other dimensions. Now, in addition, right, let's say you don't want to click on the side here, right? I'm just going to type C, right? And it automatically is going to tell me, yes, you have that. So you can go ahead and add that in. It's perfect. So now with this, we have all of our items. And now this global tells us it's a public dimension. So from here, you notice that measures are a key point because they hold your data. So for this circumstance, I'm going to call this amount. You have the control point to say how many decimals. I leave it at 7 because you never know what you might run into. Now we're able to save this, and we're going to call this demonstration. Try that again. So this model will go ahead and save out, and now we will be ready to load this data and transform it to our needs. So as shown here, right, we structured in terms of what we wanted, we constructed the load file, we built our model, and now we really want to load our data and make sure we got it inside. And also in the next story, or in the next video, we can discuss working with your story with the data that you've loaded. So let me get into that. So now you see import jobs and upload jobs, right? What's the difference? So there's new functionality in SAC where you could have a load trigger in a story so a user can directly upload their files. Import jobs is saying that the admin or someone else is doing it directly from here. So it's more common that import jobs is used. Upload jobs is if they're given the comfort level to the actual user. So let me get that file of demo test. Open that up. And we are on sheet 2. Go ahead and click import. Kind of goes through your file. Once it's done, down below, you'll see that it's been good. You can go ahead and click Set Up Export. All right. This is kind of exactly what we saw, right? So it's not clean, but everywhere you go, not everything's going to be clean. So you could say, okay, that's fine. I can mitigate that. So line 2 is kind of something we don't need. So you can double click at the top. Apologies. Rename. I'm going to rename this to account. I'm going to rename this to team. Typically you can click at the top. For some reason it was not behaving the way I desired. And so if you notice, it kind of took it a different way. So this is not version, right? This is C_E.